In this video, I'm going to do an overview of how the nervous system is going to be used to regulate cardiovascular homeostasis. So we're going to tie together both what's happening at the arteries and at the heart. So first we need to understand that the center for cardiovascular system control is located in the medulla oblongata of the brainstem of the brain. The medulla oblongata itself contains three important nuclei, or groups of neuron cell bodies, that are controlling cardiovascular function. We have the cardioinhibitory center, the cardioacceleratory center, and the vasomotor center. The cardioinhibitory center tells you what it's doing. It is going to inhibit heart rate and inhibit stroke volume, that kind of stuff. And it does this by stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. Because, of course, the parasympathetic nervous system is what's going to lower heart rate, lower stroke volume, lower cardiac output. The cardioacceleratory center, on the other hand, is going to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, which will increase heart rate and increase stroke volume and increase cardiac output. And then we have the vasomotor center. So this is the one that's highly affecting blood vessels, specifically arteries. The vasomotor center only really has sympathetic signaling, and it's going to stimulate sympathetic input to arteries. When we stimulate sympathetic input to arteries, for most arteries of the body, this means we're causing vasoconstriction, which will increase blood pressure. So when it comes to these three centers in the medulla oblongata, which two sound like they're working together? So one of them is kind of the opposite of the other two. So which two are working together? If you said the cardioacceleratory center and the vasomotor center, you're right, because both of those are going to end up doing things like increasing cardiac output and increasing blood pressure. The medulla oblongata acts as the control center for cardiovascular function. But what exactly stimulates the medulla oblongata to send signals via the cardioacceleratory versus cardioinhibitory center? Turns out that we have certain sensory neurons that are sending signals to the medulla oblongata. These sensory neurons are baroreceptors and chemoreceptors. These baroreceptors and chemoreceptors are located in the wall of the aorta and the wall of the carotid arteries. And when they're activated, they send signals to the medulla oblongata. The baroreceptors, bar means pressure, the baroreceptors detect changes in blood pressure, whereas the chemoreceptors detect changes in chemicals. The chemoreceptors are sensitive to changes in oxygen, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen ions, in other words, pH. So how does this work exactly? Well, low blood pressure will be detected by baroreceptors. Low oxygen, high carbon dioxide, or low pH will be detected by the chemoreceptors. And those conditions will cause the baroreceptors and chemoreceptors to activate the cardioacceleratory center and the vasomotor center. This is going to result in an increase in stroke volume, heart rate, cardiac output, and blood pressure. However, if the baroreceptors detect a high blood pressure, or if the chemoreceptors detect high oxygen, low carbon dioxide, or high pH, the opposite will occur. We'll get activation of the cardioinhibitory center, which will result in a decrease in heart rate and stroke volume and cardiac output. Likewise, we will reduce sympathetic signaling via the vasomotor center, which results in vasodilation and a decrease in blood pressure. Let's go through a whole what-if situation. What if your blood pressure suddenly increases, but not for any physiological reason? So your blood pressure is up when it shouldn't, right? Your kidneys are getting angry, right? We want to bring the blood pressure back down to normal. We're going to use the nervous system, right? That's because the baroreceptors in the aorta and carotid arteries are going to detect this high blood pressure. They're going to send signals to the medulla oblongata, activating the cardioinhibitory center. The cardioinhibitory center is going to send parasympathetic signals to the heart. It's going to go via the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is what carries those parasympathetic signals to the heart. The neurons in the vagus nerve are going to release acetylcholine onto the SA and AV nodes of the heart. The acetylcholine is going to cause hyperpolarization of those cardiac muscle cells. When the cardiac muscle cells hyperpolarize, it's harder for them to produce an action potential. And if we don't have action potentials, or if we have less action potential, we're going to decrease contractility, decrease heart rate, decrease stroke volume, decrease cardiac output, and decrease blood pressure. We will also be inhibiting the vasomotor center under these conditions, because when we have that high blood pressure signal come into the medulla oblongata, it does affect the vasomotor center. But the vasomotor center is going to react by sending less signals, because don't forget, the vasomotor center really only has sympathetic control of arteries. And we don't want an increase in sympathetic signaling here. We want a decrease in sympathetic signaling to the arteries. This will result in vasodilation of most of the arteries of the body. And if we have vasodilation occur, then we will have a decrease in blood pressure. Are there going to be any hormones that we would use here? Are there any hormones that we learned about that have a big impact on reducing blood pressure? So take a minute to think about that. Really, the only hormone we discussed that could decrease blood pressure is atrial natriuretic peptide hormone. And that's only released when blood volume is high and the heart is overstretched. We don't have any indication that blood volume is high or that the heart is overstretched, so likely that hormone is not going to be used here. All right, now see if you can go through the opposite scenario on your own. What would happen if your baroreceptors detected extremely low blood pressure, right? It's so low, you've basically stopped making urine, right? Not good. How will your body respond? How will your body bring your blood pressure back up to normal? What are the different things that are going to happen to bring that blood pressure back up to normal? Pause the video and see if you can go through this process, and then come back to the video and check your answer.